So just sitting back and getting into a nice meditation posture. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. Bringing the attention inside. Letting the body soften. And just checking in with yourself. How are you feeling right now at the evening of this day? So many of these days can be difficult in kind of strange ways, ways that aren't really normal. You might have a day where nothing really special happens, but somehow things just are hard to take. We're all in this challenging time, trying to maintain balance in it. It's really the hardest thing. And certainly getting together to meditate is one of the best things. Just to relax, turn off the world, to reflect on the Dharma, to just try to be present in this moment of life. To just let go of all the stories and the distractions. Just to recognize that this is the essence of life, just being, sitting and being with the breath, not striving to do anything, not trying to figure anything out or plan anything. This is one reason why we often just refer to this activity as sitting, rather than putting this more sort of exotic word of meditating onto this activity. To just see it in its simplest terms. So letting the attention come to rest on the breath. Feeling this most simple activity of body. Of breathing in and breathing out. Noticing where the mind goes, where the thoughts come up, what arises as we're sitting. When we stop any external activity, there's kind of a rising to the surface of the things that are concerning us. And so we practice letting go, coming back to the breath with these thoughts, these concerns. Sometimes we become aware of what set off those thoughts. We might notice the feelings associated with the thoughts. We can also notice the end of the thoughts and the feeling of coming back to the breath. Let your practice be simple. Keep coming back to the breath, letting the mind settle, letting the body settle. As things get quieter, patterns emerge. We don't have to go chasing after them. Different things start to become apparent. Habitual thought patterns, might start to make connections between thoughts and feelings. Sometimes we don't even know what it is that we're seeing, and it takes time for those things to take shape for us, to become apparent. But we must keep looking, staying present. That's how we'll finally make connections, gain clarity. Okay. So I brought up in the last class, I was talking about investigation, and I've been kind of reflecting on that topic some more, and I want to talk about it, kind of try to broaden the meaning of it, um, how it might apply to our practice, and um, so investigation, as I said, yeah, I miss my couch. I have to get some other spaces around here. As investigation, as I brought it up, is one of the 7 factors of awakening, and it's one of the it's one that this is like the only list that it shows up on. Because the factors of awakening have mindfulness and energy and joy, tranquility, concentration, equanimity, and most of those show up on multiple lists and multiple teachings. And so I've always had a certain kind of curiosity about investigation, um, and I've never been completely satisfied with what the teachings, the various teachers' interpretations of it are. So in a way, I don't have a like one single a definition of it. It shows up in rain, right? People are familiar with that meditation practice. Tara Brach does it a lot. A lot of teachers use it. It's an acronym for recognize, accept, investigate, and then non-identify, or Tara says nurture, which is a different approach. But anyway, so investigation shows up there, and there it's mostly talked about as, at least as I understand it, as just looking very closely. So that's one element of investigations. So like with the breath, you can feel that you're breathing in and out, and just kind of in and out. Okay. Yeah, but that's not really investigating. So investigating the breath would be to feel the whole, the beginning of the breath, and the whole of the in-breath, and then the turning around, and the beginning of the out-breath, and the whole of the out-breath, and the end of the out-breath, and the space between, and kind of starting to see all the details and nuances of sensation, and the way it changes, your longer breaths, shorter breaths, smoother breaths, rougher breaths. That's how I understand it in rain. That might not be the full explanation of it, but that's certainly an element of investigation that's really important, and it's one of the ways, particularly when you find your mind is wandering in meditation, it's really helpful to kind of apply yourself in that way, to pay more detailed attention to your meditation object. It could be a different meditation object. It could be sensations in the body. It could be sounds. Um, you know, I mean, it's hard to investigate with loving kindness exactly, but it could be like feeling. I think a feeling tone, or a mood or emotion, investigating that as a felt experience. So what needs to be said here, I think, is that, like the term insight meditation, the word investigation sort of has a specific meaning in Buddhism that it doesn't quite have in English. In English, it's more like, I'm going to figure something out. Like, with insights, like I'm gonna figure something out, and with investigation, I'm gonna solve some problem or some puzzle. And that's not what it means. It, it means that we are trying to look very closely at certain aspects of reality. So yeah, it might just be something as simple as looking very closely at the breath, but where it really develops and where it's uh, used to really deepen insight and to kind of pursue insight even is particularly investigating what are called the three characteristics, or the three characteristics of existence, which are impermanence and suffering and non-self or not self. So and investigating these means we look at our experience of them, our felt or our known experience, to be aware of the changing nature of experience, which in other words, I'm saying, you would say to yourself, oh, right now, as I'm meditating, I'm just going to notice how everything is changing, or I'm going to notice things that come and go, and I'm going to notice things that end, or I'm going to notice things that begin. I'm going to just be very aware of that kind of sense of the dynamic quality of existence. So that's in Pali, that's anicca, which is, so that the term, these are terms that there's not a lot of Pali words that are really kind of common, but anicca is one that's very common. And then the second one, suffering, there's a translation of dukkha. It's not a great translation of dukkha. It's dukkha is much more nuanced than just suffering. Um, so with dukkha, we would just notice the difficult or unpleasant experience, and then notice our relationship to that. Notice how we're holding that. Notice how we're resisting that. Notice what happens when we let go of resistance around that. And notice and so that's what's like this kind of suffering quality of dukkha. But the another quality of dukkha is the unsatisfactoriness. So that's where we sort of notice how things don't complete us. Something that we are kind of striving for doesn't complete us. And one of the ways you can experience this in meditation is when you sort of go off on some thought and like some fantasy or plan. And as you're off there, or in the middle of it, when you realize you're off there and you come back to your felt experience, and what you feel is, that's not happening. I don't have it, and you're feeling the unsatisfactory nature of thinking, like, I can't think things into existence. And you feel that kind of tension, that frustration in there. And that's thereby motivates us to let go of our attachment to thinking. Not that we should let go of thinking altogether, but our kind of, notice how we kind of get into thinking that what's the kind of what's implied, what our minds sort of infer about thinking, is that somehow my thought is going to solve or fix or something, or arrive at something. Something is going to kind of get done, and so that's word unsatisfactory, that somehow I'm going to get some satisfaction out of this thinking. And when we realize that that's not true, that's one of the great motivators for this practice, to learn to let go of obsessive thinking, and to notice those moments when we're lost in it, and to just be able to say, don't have to do this. This isn't leading where I'm hoping it will. Well, that's dukkha. And then the third of the characteristics is anatta, which has got various translations, but we usually translate it as not self. It doesn't mean that there it's not saying there is no self, but they're saying there's nothing you can really point to that is self. This is, of course, one of the, profound insights of Buddhism, and also one that's difficult to talk about, uh, and sort of, people will kind of get into squabbles about it. I would say that anatta or anatta in Buddhism, in terms of people's resistance to it, it's kind of similar to the way people resist God in the 12 steps. Like it's not that those two are at all similar as things, but it's just like it's like the thing that you can never figure out and you can never solve is like anatta and God. And maybe they are related, but I'm not going to go there. So the one of the ways to get to anatta is to realize everything is constantly changing. So there can't be something that is a solid self. That, okay, you try to argue with that one, Now, I think the derivation of the word, in fact, I know the derivation of the word anatta actually refers to what in Sanskrit is Atman, which is soul. And I also don't often hear this mentioned by Dharma teachers, but it seems to me that part of what the Buddha is saying is no soul, because that's the essence, right? That's the thing that we all kind of cling to ultimately, is like, okay, yeah, I see my body changes and my thoughts change, but there's something that I feel that's like permanent, that's what I call me. And I think that must be my soul, and it's another thing the Buddha kind of goes, you're just, what are you talking about? And so he actually takes apart this felt experience, and that, in some of the really exalted teachings, and I think this might show up in the Abhidhamma, but the ways that they that he talks about this sense of I-ness, of existence, like, and where that comes from. But mostly it comes from memory, perception, uh, because we remember being us, and we everything around us is a thing, and we look at ourselves and we're a thing. So it just sort of like, yeah, it's a thing. But then, of course, we can take apart everything around us and realize that those things don't have self either, you know. I actually haven't arrived at the thing that I wanted to talk about tonight, so which is interesting. Maybe not unusual. Because I'll say that, these are, some of these things are easier to investigate than others. It's challenging to investigate self. Uh, there are suggestions about it, to notice your thoughts, notice how often I, or the sense of I, is in your thoughts. Just kind of like, what happens if you let go of that? What happens if you stop having that reference point? And the watching impermanence is a very popular in the Theravadan tradition. It's one of the main ways that insight is taught and encouraged. With those of you who have been on retreats in the Goenka style, he really points to that with mindfulness of sensations. That they work with a sweeping. Taking the awareness through the body over and over. They call sweeping, like awareness is kind of sweeping through the body and noticing the sensations. And over a 10-day retreat, you kind of do that I think you do that for about 7 of the 10 days. The first few days are on breath, and then they go just into sweeping. And it's meant to just really drive home the reality that there's nothing permanent in your bodily sensations. But the thing that I find most interesting to investigate ultimately, and it probably has some, what we're drawn to in terms of investigation is related to personality. For me, dukkha and the arising of dukkha is what's most interesting. But further, it's actually karma, or cause and effect. And here's where, I was going back and looking at the Satipatthana Sutta, and there's this phrase in there that shows up repeatedly. And so around body, so the Satipatthana is the four foundations of mindfulness, and the first foundation is body. It says, one abides contemplating in the body its arising factors, or abides contemplating in the body its vanishing factors, or abides contemplating in the body both its arising and vanishing factors. And that's typically, very technical kind of language, arising factors, vanishing factors. It says the same thing about feelings. One abides contemplating in feelings, their arising factors, or abides contemplating in feelings, their vanishing factors, or both their arising and vanishing factors. So this line, which shows up for each of the four foundations, mind states and phenomena, the other two dharmas, is usually pointed to as a suggestion that we see impermanence. We see how we try to watch when things appear, catch the beginning, and then watch when they end, because those two things are kind of moments that impermanence is very evident. Oh, right, that just happened. Oh, that just ended. Okay, yeah, wow, that's changing. So that's evident. But my sense, and this is very much, my sense, is that it's also pointing to seeing causality. And causality is so central, both to dharma and to recovery, right? How did we become addicts? Cause and effect. Right? It was through actions. How did we stop being addicts? Through cause and effect, through stopping actions. All our recovery is based on taking certain actions. I mean, going beyond just being sober or being clean or, abstinent, to have real recovery, we know that we've got to take action. And the question always is, when you call your sponsors, the question is, what should I do? Right? That's like, what should I do? And when you call the Buddha, it's the same question, what should I do? And that's what his teaching is, right? The Eightfold Path is, this is what you should do. There's even that beautiful phrase in the opening of the Metta Sutta, the Sutta on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. And it goes on, and that's the whole sutta. This is what should be done. Well, this is what we all want to know, right? What should I do? Well, we can get outside advice. We can study the Eightfold Path. We can, work the steps. We can talk to our sponsor. We can do all kinds of things to try to do the right thing. But in meditation, we have an opportunity to watch cause and effect unfold. So when it says, abide you know, in contemplating the arising of feelings, well, that can involve noticing how that feeling arose. And that seems to me to be like a critical question. How did I get into this place? You know, a lot of times you just kind of, if you wake up figuratively, like in a mood, right? In a state, like, wow, I'm just in this state now. And and a lot of psychotherapy is about how did you get into that state? And you know, it's going back through your lifetime and trying to see causality there. Your parents, your siblings, your society, the way you were treated, uh, you know, all those kind of elements. But so that's, and that's a really valuable, that can be a really valuable exploration. But in meditation, in terms of investigating, we can do this in the moment. And this is where I think, you know, one of the most valuable things we can do in our meditation is see how thoughts and feelings arise, see what the causal chain is. So what dependent origination, one of the teachings of the Buddha, is about this whole chain of causality, how suffering arises, how it ends. And so we can kind of, sometimes it's useful to kind of stop and go. I mean, a fun exercise can be to stop when you find yourself like really out there in a thought, and just stop and go, okay, what was the starting point of this? And it can be so interesting because you realize that it might be just a sensation in your body that reminded you of something. And then some person maybe came to mind, and then what happened with them, and then it takes you back like 20 years, and then you're off, and then you might go into, you know, if I hadn't done that, what if I would have done this, you know, and then I could be, what if I had married them, you know, and all of us, and you're like, wait, how did that, and you unravel it, you go, oh, that was because that feeling in my toe reminded me of when I broke my toe climbing that mountain back, you know, right? So this is just, for example, you know, I mean, that's a very kind of uh, intentional version of this, but a more, and you know, and more extended, but a more common thing is just the, oh, wait, where's this coming from? Oh, wow, did you see that? Well, that was interesting. I got there. Okay. Oh yeah, right. When I do that, yeah, I see that one. I've talked about how, I talked about this recently. It might have been during the Southern Dharma retreat, but I was on retreat not too long ago, sometime in the last decade. Uh, and I was doing walking meditation. This was at Insight Retreat Center. And I started thinking about this person who I had known when I was on my first retreats. And the memories were painful. And as I'm doing walking meditation, and I realized, you know, every time I'm on retreat, I think about that person. And every time that happens, it's painful. And nothing gets solved. And I just go into a funk. And you know, so it was like, oh, cause and effect, right? And like not only cause and effect, but like very repetitive cause and effect. Like there, like it's that, you know, uh, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results thing, you know. And I just stopped and I thought, I don't have to do this. And I made a vow to not do it, to not think about this person anymore when I was on retreats. And it kind of like I think of that as like a mindfulness bell. Like when that person shows up, it's like ding. Oh, right. Snap out of it, you know. because you're about to go into the trance. Don't go there. So, I guess that's, not quite sure how I got there, but it is, I guess in my mind, that's like very much one of those things that you could see as you're meditating, that the way you create your moods, frankly, but, the way you, create yourself to as well, because then I'm creating myself in relation to this person and, in this story. And how, by paying attention and investigating that, it's not just like noticing, oh, thinking about this person and then continuing on, right? It's, oh, wait, remembering this pattern. And so that's the investigation. I'm just not just being mindful that, oh, I'm thinking about this person and I'm feeling this. It's, I'm thinking about this person and I'm feeling this, and I'm knowing that this is part of a pattern, and it's an habitual pattern that doesn't need to happen. I mean, that's the thing about cause and effect. You know, you're the one who's doing it, and we are making the choices. And as Thanissaro Bhikkhu says, the only time we can change our karma is in the present moment. And how many times, I mean, this thought about this person was very much me trying to go back into the past and fix it, maybe, or somehow change that. And you can't do that. You can't go into the future and prepare your karma. It's only in this moment. So it's like, oh, I can change my karma right now. Great. So, oh, thank you, Michael, for that comment about, yeah, I like Dan Harris's podcast. And Guy Armstrong, uh, in the chat, Michael said that there's a podcast conversation with Dan Harris with Guy Armstrong. And Guy is really one of the most skillful teachers in speaking about not self. And he also has a book called Emptiness, which is brilliant as well. Yeah. So a couple minutes left if anybody wants to chime in. So any thoughts, any questions?
Hey, Kevin, it's Dana. How are you?
Hi, Dana.
Hey, thank you so much. I am experiencing grief from losing my mom, right before this whole pandemic hit. And the grief of losing my mom before losing my mom because of the disintegration of our relationship. So there's just so much going on, and a lot of those repetitive thoughts and trying to relive scenes and do them differently, and still knowing and being mindful that I am here now and I need to stay present. But it's just been so overwhelming, because there's grief, and then there's the grief of losing my job temporarily to be home with my kids, and they're losing. There's just so much loss, which has been a great teacher. But when it does get overwhelming, I don't know, what thoughts do you have for me? I let myself feel the feelings. I cry and all that, but sometimes I don't know if I'm holding on too much, that balance of letting go and holding on, because it's love. I mean, it's grief is love. So, but there's all that other messy shit involved.
Yeah.
So,
well,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm sorry about your mom, and that's a whole process, right? Of grieving, and it's especially difficult, as you say, when that relationship was fraught, and there's unresolved stuff. I have to sort of take that almost separately from the bigger question of what we're all experiencing. So, because you know, when my father died, which was like when I was a year sober, so it kind of like coincided. It was right when I was doing my amends, and it was actually a good coincidence. I mean, in terms of being able to be with him and kind of feel like there were things resolved. But I also really felt like I needed to give space for the feelings of grief and to make sure I was giving space to it. Um, and that was there was no pandemic going on, so it was like it was something that I could sort of like. It was safe. It felt safe to do that. Like I had a daily practice of just reading some of Stephen Levine's work on death. He has a book called Meetings at the Edge, which are really just stories about people who are dying, he worked with people who were in death, dying, or grieving for many years. He was really a remarkable work that he did. So I would read that and cry. That was kind of like my daily practice for a while. But I think the bigger question about what we're living through is doesn't sort of lend itself to something so kind of simple and direct, because we're not just grieving something happened and now that's in the past and we're grieving it. We're living through a daily trauma, and it's got multiple levels, and really I think it's probably, I think I can safely say it's the most difficult time in human history, because there's never been a time in human history when crises that were happening were global in this way. The only comparable thing would be World War II, probably. But even that, for people who weren't directly involved in the war, they didn't have to wear a mask every time they went outside, and sort of worry that if you were living in Kansas, you weren't worried about the Nazis, bombing you. But, we're all kind of like, there's no escape right now. And then, the political situation being so disastrous, is so traumatizing. And for people with kids, no school. What I mean, it's just, to me, it's just hang on. Do everything you can to, find moments of happiness and release each day. Whenever you can. I mean, when we had the smoke, for that week, that was when I hit the wall. Like I just like, it was like I'm trapped now, and it just, uh, and so you just finally, it's like the only thing you have to hold on to is it's going to change. It's impermanent. This pandemic will pass. This president will pass. This, you know, but frankly, I don't know, the ultimate one as well. One day the earth will just, the sun will explode and the earth will be gone. So it's like, I mean, everything's impermanent. So what are you going to do? Apparently that's some billions of years from now. So we don't have to worry about it, but in some ways it might be a relief, I don't know. So I wish I had a better answer for you, Dana, except just like, it's just one day at a time. It really is. It's all it is. And definitely some things are going to change, God willing, we'll have sanity in the political sphere. At least, we'll be out of the straitjacket, well, at least, Well, I ran over, which is good, because I appreciate you guys showing up and, putting up with me. I am going to be back here on Tuesday, and we're still figuring out we think that we can make Zoom work on Friday, next Friday, because the retreat will be going on, but I'm going to have this class. So if you're not on the retreat, come to the class. If there's if I'm not there or something doesn't seem to be working, like go to my website, kevingriffin.net, and I'll put a message on there like, help, I'm trapped inside my computer, or I'll get probably more likely maybe a different Zoom account or something like that. But hopefully somebody come save me. Trapped in my basement. Everybody's like, yeah, well, so am I. What do you want me to do about it? Yeah. All right. So yeah, I am kind of excited about this song, and I hope you'll come tomorrow night to the that. Oops, I just clicked on the Rocksteady Fest link in the psychedelic. Yeah, and Fordham's an awesome, like, Buddhist blues singer. We've never heard anything like him, and he's a lot of fun. So come. That'll be, for your daily, hit of joy. Hopefully that will help you tomorrow. Are we good then? We're good to go. All right. So find a good show to watch on Netflix. Something that's like not too dark, just, or meditate. I mean, whatever. Maybe a little dessert. And I shouldn't even say that because I know there's people with eating disorders, and that's really funny. So I did not mean to. I don't want to disturb people. You can give me Donna, so that's always nice. There's always Canada. Thank you, Chris. Yes, but I don't know. They might be invading. So, oh, there's a new message. I have to see what it is. Oh, tomorrow, 6 to 8 p.m. Thank you, Angela, for putting in that.
So I put it back in there.
Yeah, good. All right, guys. Take care. Be healthy. If you're on the West Coast, don't go camping and start fires. Thank you. It's your public service message for tonight. Be well.
Thanks.
Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, guys.